55. Satan's repatriation and redemption. 26th March, 1847. If the matter is like this, some might say, in this way, the desired improvement of the first fallen spirit and his helpers looks very slim. For if, in a certain way, the most depraved part of his soul will remain as the dregs and slag of all matter, as a substrate of a new creation, then within this slag soil the spirit will also remain trapped, for a spirit never leaves its soul, and this may be a substantial or material. Yes, I say, with the improvement and return of this spirit and his helpers, it will look a little slim here. There is still just a spark of possibility. But this spark is so small that it would hardly be perceived with a microscope, which would have at least 1,000,000,000 times magnification. This will only become clear after a main examination of this spirit, and that in such a way by which this spirit will experience in the clearest way that all his soul has been taken from him and has gone into the glory of God. There will be no more sun and no more earth in the vast space of creation, for by then all visible bodies will have completely surrendered their captives, and there will be no matter to be found, except the spiritual of a new heaven and a new earth. But the old earth will shrivel up like an apple when it has become rotten, and in its rottenness gradually withered away. And that will also be all that will remain of all matter, namely, the last slag of genuinely satanic psychic, most evil particles of intelligence, which the spirit of Satan will not leave, together with his henchmen. But it would be of no use to anyone to determine when this will happen, for on this natural earth no human being will experience it, and in the spiritual world every perfect spirit will not care a whit what has happened to the filth, just as in this world there will surely be hardly one among 1,000,000 people who would anxiously and mournfully inquire about the filth that fell from his body 30 years ago. But this filth would be even better than the other. But this will happen, that then his spirit will be thrown into all eternity with its most solid coating of dross, and its fall will never find an end. But in all the depths of depths, he will fall into the sea of wrath, into which he will penetrate deeper and deeper, and will always find more and more torment, the endlessly deeper he will penetrate into the ever more violent sea of wrath, which has no end. Although this sea of wrath is a fire of all fire, it will never dissolve this dwelling, and there it will be as it is written, all wickedness has sunk down into the eternal abyss, and has been swallowed up forever, and henceforth there shall never be any wickedness in all the spaces of infinity. But as long as this earth still exists, it is possible for every spirit to take the way of repentance, humility, and correction. Thus also for the worst spirit. But when this time will pass, then also the possibility of a return will be barricaded for eternal times. It will still take a pretty long time until the earth will deliver all prisoners, because it is still a considerably big lump. Even some millions of Earth years will pass, where the earth will make its last trial by fire, in the fire of the sun. What will still be able to be dissolved, that will reach freedom. But what the fire of the sun will not be able to dissolve, what will not become liquid in this fire, that will remain dross eternally, as a prison of the very worst, and that will be the last and eternal death. But since we have already spoken so much about the most evil spirit imprisoned in this earth, it will be for you, even if not so very useful, but still memorable, to learn where in this earth body the actual abode of the most evil spirit is. It is not difficult to tell you this. I may only lead you into the center of the earth. Then you already have the dwelling place of this spirit. It is not the heart, nor any other visceral part of the earth, because these visceral parts consist, like everything else, of souls in which, however, partly this announced most evil spirit works, but partly also, and indeed always in the majority, the good spirits, which then limit the work of the evil one. The seat of this evil spirit is the actual firmest center on which everything presses, so that it does not move too violently and destroy all the essence of the earth. Because one could only give it a little air, then it would be finished in an instant, not only with this earth, but with the visible creation. Because there is a tremendous power in it, which can only be held down by the very heaviest bonds, which I alone, as the Lord, can forge. But even if he is still so much bound, he never fails to breathe his arch-evil into the ascending elements, which breath of will is still powerful enough to plant death into all soul elements, which death still faithfully certifies itself in all creatures of the earth. For everything organic is destructible, and all matter is capable of giving death and causing destruction. And all this stems from the breath of will of the most evil one, whose wickedness or evil is in itself so indescribably terrible that you would never be able to form even the slightest concept of it. Because the smallest concept of the actual evil of this spirit would already be so deadly that no man could think and live it. And if I would give you only the smallest description of the actual evil of this spirit, it would kill you in the first moment. Because everything you have already heard about this spirit are only the faintest and most distant shadow images, and are enveloped by my protecting grace on all sides. and are sufficient to suspect this being for your need. A closer acquaintance with this being would be most pernicious. You can already take a shadow image of the relentlessness and the most terrible, cruel malice of its nature from some phenomena on the surface of the earth. Consider those vehement poisonous plants of the tropical countries. How terrifying is their effect! And no one can help destroying such a plant. For whoever approaches such a tree or plant for only a few hours immediately falls down dead. And yet such a plant has only an infinitely smallest specific in itself, which comes up to the surface from the vicinity of the abode of this evil spirit, and enters into the order of such a tree. At the sight of such a plant, which does not tolerate any life apart from itself, everyone can already get an idea, admittedly only on the smallest enveloped potency, what Satan's actual evil looks like. Also, the sight of a tiger is instructive in this respect. This animal has likewise only one aeon specificum from the psychic specifical proximity of the abode of this most evil spirit in itself, and this specificum is sufficient to make this animal the most cruel of all four-footed animals. Because this animal is cunning, has no fear, and spares nothing what it encounters. Snakes and the vipers are the same. When they are hungry, they attack everything that they encounter. Even a stone falling from a height spares nothing. With deadly blind fury, it smashes everything that stands in its way. From such objects, one can recognize something of the most relentless fierceness of this most evil spirit. Because of its harmfulness, I will not describe its whereabouts to you in detail. It is enough that you know where, how, and why. And we want to consider other useful and important things in this sphere next time, instead of giving more detailed description of this spirit.